We've already seen how to mute a track, but it's also possible to mute whole clips. This is done by selecting a clip and then pressing K. A muted clip displays a red circle with a diagonal slash through it in the top left-hand corner. Other methods are checking the mute option in the clip inspector or selecting clip mute from the right clip context menu. The mute tool selected from the toolbar or from the HUD can also be used by clicking in the top half to mute and unmute, or sweeping in the bottom to mute sections. Sweeping in the top unmutes. We'll be looking at this tool in greater detail when we get to the comping section. We've looked at layers several times already, and they're also useful when editing. If there are multiple clips on a track that overlap each other, under the default display, with layers off, they're stacked on top of each other and overlap. Only one is visible at one time, but all of them are audible unless any of the clips are muted. Take lanes is a method of displaying them all at once, but more importantly, having a little more control over them. A take can be muted or solo, allowing us to listen back to each one individually. This is very handy in editing when we're trying to pick the best take of a section. The solo and mute buttons are mutually exclusive to each other, so selecting solo on a lane will automatically mute the others. However, the mute buttons can be used individually, so it is possible to hear more than one take at a time. The advantage of having all similar takes on the same track is that the track processing is identical, so we know that any differences in the material is purely down to the material rather than any of the controls on the track. We'll be using take lanes when we look at comping. We can open clips for further editing by double-clicking on it. The default action for double-clicking on clips is set in the TV Options, Click Behaviour, double-click submenu. MIDI clips have the choice of clip properties, event list, staff view, piano roll view and inline piano roll view, while audio clips have nothing, clip properties and loop construction view. MIDI clips also have their own individual menu to change the default click action for that clip. This is located at the top right-hand corner of the clip. Clicking on it and selecting a choice from the drop-down menu will open that view and at the same time set the default action for double-clicking on that clip. For example, selecting piano roll opens the piano roll in the multi-dock, and that clip now has the piano roll view as the default view to open when double-clicking on that clip, regardless of the global default we set earlier. We'll be looking at opening clips and editing their data in the next few videos. We also have linked clips, and a change made to one will affect the others linked to it. Linked clips are easy to see as they have a dashed border around them. However, clips can only be linked at copy and paste time by checking the Link Clips option in the Paste Special dialog that we looked at earlier. For example, select this bass clip, copy it, select the now time to want to paste it, make sure that's the in focus track, press Alt-Control-V, make sure Link to Original Clips is selected and click on OK. That now has an outline to show it's linked to the previous clip, which also has an outline. Linked clips can be unlinked by selecting one or more of the clips, then selecting Unlink from the right-click context menu. Here we have choices for unlinked clip options. If two or more selected clips are linked with each other, you decide whether they should become a new link group or become completely independent. Make your choice and then click on OK. When clips are linked, editing actions will happen to both. This is the data inside the clip, not the clip itself. For MIDI clips, this means adding notes, moving them, etc. And for audio clips, it applies to processing when using the audio processors found in the main process menu. I mentioned clip grouping in the recording options section. Clip groups are the method by which we can treat multiple clips as a single unit for editing purposes. They can contain both MIDI and audio clips and contain clips from the same or multiple tracks. We can have as many groups as we want. A clip can only belong to one group at a time though. If we try to add group clips to a different group, the original group is removed and a new group created. To create a clip group, select the clips you wish to include and then choose Create Selection Group from selected clips. If a clip is in a group, there is a number in the top left-hand corner of the clip. This indicates which clip group number it belongs to. Clips can be added to an existing group using exactly the same method. Just select one of them, select the clip you wish to add, right-click and select Create Selection Group from selected clips. I mentioned earlier that groups can be created at recording time, and this is particularly useful when recording multi-part instruments such as drums or perhaps multiple mic'd acoustic guitars. Once grouped, any editing action performed on one will be mirrored on the other members of the group. For example, mute one and they all mute. Control, click and drag to copy them, they all copy. If you split one, They all split. To remove clips from a group, select a clip and select Remove Clips from Group, which removes them all. It may at first glance seem that linked and grouped clips are the same thing, but there are some subtle and important differences. When MIDI clips are grouped, any editing carried out on the clip is mirrored by the others as we've seen. However, editing the data in the clips, such as deleting notes, is not. That is one of the main differences between the two. If we want the data changes within the clip to happen, they need to be linked. With audio tracks, the only processing that affects linked audio tracks are those found in the Process Apply Effect menu. To be able to split and mute clips, we need to group them. Now we've looked at some of the editing basics, let's have a look at setting some defaults via the Preferences panel. Press P and navigate to Customization, Editing. Again, you may need to check the Advanced option. Under the drag and drop, we see Copy Entire Clips as Linked Clips. This option will ensure any clips we drag and drop will be linked. Note this only applies to whole clips, not partial clips. What to do with existing material? These options are similar to those found in the pasting options that we looked at. They are, however, separate settings, are independent from the pasting options themselves. With Ask Every Time checked, you'll be prompted every time you drag and drop objects. Obviously, uncheck this box if you don't want that behaviour. The Clips option allows us to set selection behaviour after a clip has been split. You can choose to have either the left portion, the right portion, both portions, or none selected after the split has happened. When splitting clips in groups, create New Groups option. When this is checked, if you split a clip that belongs to a group, the resulting split clips will be grouped together in a new group. If unchecked, the clips become part of the current group. We've just seen that behaviour when I split grouped clips. We'll look at the MIDI options on this page when we cover editing MIDI in the PRV. It's possible to change the scaling of the waveform in a clip. This is done by click dragging in the audio scale ruler, which lives in the separator between the clips pane and the track. The cursor reflects this when it's over it. This has nothing at all to do with actually changing the waveform, only the way that it is displayed. All audio tracks can have their audio scaling changed at once by using either Alt plus the up and down arrow keys, or holding the Control key down while using the zoom controls in the bottom right hand corner. The waveform view can be maximised to remove the clip header from view on expanded clips. This is done by selecting Maximise Waveform Height from the Track View Display menu. This will show only the waveform, but notice that the Smart Tool hotspots are now the same as minimised clips. The top half of the clip now responds as the clip grab and selection area without moving the now time, while the bottom half is for clip selection while moving the now time. Scaling is different to zoom in that it zooms in on the data visible rather than the current view. The view zoom level doesn't change. There are 3 different display scales available for audio, selected by right-clicking within the scale ruler. The first is the decibel setting, and the highest number in the scale ruler sets the highest level of the waveform that will be visible. For example, if it reads at -6 dB, as it does here, only the waveform that is at -6 dB or lower will be visible. Peaks at 0 decibel or anything at -3 dB, for example, won't be visible. They appear to clip at the top of the clip. Zoom factor indicates how far in the view is zoomed. 1, for example, is no zoom at all. 0.5 is zoomed out and 2 is zoomed in by a factor of 2. You can see here the current zoom level is 1.4. Last is the percentage setting, which displays a percentage of the waveform visible relative to the 0 crossing point. 100%, for example, shows all of the waveform up to 0 dB, 50% shows half of it, and 25% would just show a quarter of it. Double-clicking the scale ruler returns it to default of 0 dB or 100%, depending on your scale unit setting. This scale area can also be turned off completely by deselecting Show Audio Scale in the Track View menu. Let's zoom in on one of these waveforms, both at audio scaling level and a horizontal level. I'm using Control plus the right arrow key to do that. The waveforms are visual representations of the fluctuating amplitude of the waveform or vibration of the air molecules going up and down over a central point known as the 0 crossing. At the 0 crossing, we have no amplitude in the waveform and therefore silence, albeit a very, very brief one. These 0 crossings make excellent points at which to split or join waveforms together. If we try and do it elsewhere in the wave cycle, at the top here for example, we're likely to get audible pops and clips. If If you remember, in the Snap settings page in Preferences, there was a checkbox for Snap to the nearest zero audio crossing. When checked, it will mean that a snap point will try to snap to the closest point of silence. It's at these points that we're least likely to get pops and clips when splitting. Now let's zoom back out. MIDI tracks have a similar scaling, but they have the choices of notes, which it's currently on, or 7-bit values. That's 0 to 127. If the scale is too small, the 7-bit values show regardless of your choice here, and the notes won't show until zoomed in far enough. Returning to audio clips, clips can be faded in or out, and this can help to eliminate pops and clips if the clip start or end is quite abrupt. Let's look at manual fades. We'll create 2 clips, and move them apart to make it easy to see what's happening. These are performed in a similar manner to clip editing, but the cursor needs to be toward the top of a clip. To fade a clip in, simply move the cursor to the top left corner. To fade out, top right. The cursor will change to show a triangular shape in the relevant direction, and the edge of the clip will turn red. At this point, click and drag the cursor towards the middle of the clip. You'll see the fade affect the waveform as you drag it. Drag it as far as you like to achieve the fade you want. To change the type of fade, move the cursor over the fade until it changes to the fade indicator, and then right-click to select the fade type from the pop-up menu. Fade can be linear, which is a straight line, slow curve, which means it starts slowly and then increases, or a fast curve, which starts off steep and then decreases. Once a fade has been applied, it can be moved to later in the clip by slip editing the edge of the clip in the top 25%. To move only the start time, click and drag in the bottom 25%, beneath where the blue horizontal line is. The fade end time stays in the same position the start time moves, and at the top, the whole fade moves. That's exactly the same for fade outs. All of these techniques work on multiple selected clips. Where 2 clips overlap each other in a track, it's possible to have them automatically cross-fade into each other. Automatic crossfades can be turned on by clicking on the Auto Crossfade option in the Track View Options menu. The default for fades can be set in the option beneath this. There's a default setting for the fade-in curve that we've just looked at, default for the fade-out we've also looked at, and a default for the crossfade curves. These can also be set from the tracks themselves though. If I drag this clip from the right over top of the one from the left, you'll see when I release that an automatic crossfade is added. To change the type of fade, right-click in the fade area, select the desired curves from the choices. These type of slip fades are non-destructive, which means you can reverse them unless you have bounced the clip. Select the area of the clip that the fade should be applied to. Remember, we do that towards the bottom of a clip. From the main menu, select the Process, Apply Effect, Fade Envelope command. There are options here for the type of fade in and fade out, and there's a graphical representation of the resulting curve that can be edited by grabbing the node points. All sorts of fades are possible using these tools. But remember that the resulting fade is a destructive fade. It permanently affects the audio. That means it will be very hard to change later, as the undo function is the only way to reverse the process. Another method of fading clips together is to select the clips and use the Fade Clips command. They do need to be close to each other to crossfade though. This is selected from the Track View Clips menu. While simple fades are possible with this option, it is capable of putting crossfades in and filling gaps between audio clips. This makes it a useful tool to comp together clips that have been split but not trimmed, and I'll demonstrate using this later when we look at comping. Also in the Process menu are several more tools for working with audio. These are all destructive processes, meaning that once applied, they can only be undone with the undo command. So make sure you wish to apply these before doing so. For most of these to be selectable as a choice, there needs to be some audio selected somewhere in the project. Apply Audio Effects is similar to Bounce Track, except that the bounce remains in the current track. Any effects in the effects bins are applied to selected audio, and options are set in the dialog box that appears. There needs to be effects in the audio effects bin for this to be a selectable choice. Remove Silence is effectively a noise gate that is applied to the audio rather than processed in real time. There are settings to adjust the level at which the gate opens and closes, plus attack, hold, release, and look ahead settings to control how the gate functions. There's also a preset area that you can use to save your own presets. The split clips options will automatically delete any silent sections of the audio once the processing has been completed. The gain option allows you to process the level of the audio as well as the phase and stereo interleave. The two buttons at the bottom will invert the phase of the audio. There's one for the left channel and one for the right. There are several presets to select from for cutting and boosting gain, as well as changing the stereo interleave and inverting phase or swapping channels completely. Normalize will boost the audio until the set level is reached somewhere within the audio. Note that this boosts the whole level of the audio and as a result raises the noise floor, meaning any noise within the audio will be boosted too. Again, there are several defaults to choose from. Remove DC offset we mentioned briefly as an option in the setup session. It's possible to remove any DC offset present as the audio is recorded. This option allows you to remove any that may be present on existing material. You can set the threshold from here and also have it computed from the first 5 seconds of a clip. Again, there are some presets to choose from. You can audition any material so you can hear this back before you apply it. Reverse will simply reverse the selected audio so that it effectively plays backwards. You may find this useful for special effects.